Hi everyone, Polaris here. I'm coming on Epic's Community Health Meeting night a little bit early before the meeting starts. Again, I'm not expecting anyone. I'm actually trying not to get anyone right now. I've decided to pull back and just spend some more time deepening my relationship with God and enjoying the space, just myself and Him, before I kind of welcome more people in. And rather than reading from the Bible tonight, I think I would like to talk a little bit about where I'm at with this work, how I got here, and kind of see how that goes. So I want to start off by apologizing for the foul language that is in some of my earlier videos. And I thought about maybe putting on makeup before this, but then I thought again, and I thought, no. Showing every blemish. But anyway, so I have grown quite a bit in both the work and my relationship with the Most High. And over the last 11 months, I've been convicted to stop doing a lot of things, to change a lot of things. Kind of a rebirth, I guess you might say. And not cussing is one of them. The MF word was the first thing that I was being convicted over. I knew right away 11 months ago that He didn't like that. And gradually, throughout the last 11 months, I've just realized that it's not pleasing to God for me to use foul language. So I'm going to leave my videos there because they do kind of show the evolution of the work and my growth somewhat. But I do want to apologize in this video right off the bat. As a matter of fact, the other day I got frustrated about something at work and said a few swear words walking down the hall in frustration. And I actually got convicted over even feeling frustrated because it was a silly thing. There was no need for me to even feel frustrated or use foul language. So I'm a work in progress. And, every day we just try to walk in love with God and get as close to that perfect love as we can, both for Him and for others. And the for others part is the really hard part. I've always had a warm heart towards other people, but now that I'm really taking those two most important commandments seriously, loving God with all of my heart, all of my soul, and all of my might, and loving others as I love myself, I'm realizing how, serious He is about that. And the first one's pretty easy, but that second one, even with a lot of love in my heart for people, I still, I was frustrated at another coworker. No need for that. God wasn't pleased with the attitude or the language. And there was no need for it. It just made things worse in my own mind and was unpleasing to Him. So anyway, moving on from that. So if you go back and watch my older videos, I apologize for the swearing. So I first started working with other people in group homes in 1989 at a place called Youth Benefits Incorporated that's not in existence anymore. It was until I started this walk with God and this work that I'm trying to do now, it was the job I enjoyed more than any other job. It was working with adolescents and just the building relationships and the trying to add some stability and hope and affection to their lives, some consistent structure. It just felt very meaningful, and I still have, I did have relationships with 4 of those kids, but one of them's kind of fallen off for reasons I don't really understand. Another one's been so busy with his own life and his own family. We're kind of friends on Facebook, but he doesn't use Facebook very often, so I just kind of keep up with him a little bit on there, mostly through his wife. One of the people that I worked with way back then, hi Eric, is actually one of the board of protectors on Epic. He and his wife both are. And hi Jennifer. I love them both very much, and I really appreciate their support and their love. So I worked there for about 2 years, and from there I went into my first job working with adults with developmental disabilities, which I didn't like as much as working with the adolescents. I feel like I have a soft spot in my heart for adolescents. Well, at least I did. Now that I'm so old and I lifeguard with so many young kids, I can feel that, like, the 2-generation gap kind of. I don't have as much. Of course, we're also doing a job. We're not like working in a health setting where we need to like connect like that. So maybe it would be different if we were, but it feels like the older I get, the more kind of distance there is between my generation and 2 generations back. But anyway, I did feel like working with adults with disabilities was definitely doing God's work. I always felt that way. It doesn't pay very good, so every time I had to pass somebody on the street needing money and not be able to give them any, I just kind of would think to myself, well, I'm doing God's work. I'm sorry, I can't afford to help out any outside of that realm. I don't know if that was me making excuses or not, but I can help a little bit now sometimes, and I still work in that field, so I guess it was just probably the mindset more than anything. Anyway, while I was working for DDRC, I married my ex-husband in 1994. In 1995, our first son was born. In 2000, our second son was born. And in 2003, we went through a divorce. Not to like really devolve much of my personal life, but again, through the last 11 months, really deepening my relationship with God and trying to really clarify this work and this walk that I'm on with Him, I have realized that I believe that my first love was the person that I was meant to be with, that God sent into my life. I screwed that relationship up. I blame myself completely. Pretty much completely. If it wasn't for choices that I made and actions that I took, we probably would still be together and probably have a family. Not sure, but and I do have forgiveness in my heart for my ex-husband, and I can say now that I do have love for him still in my heart, but he is a non-believer, and at the time I didn't really think that that mattered. I thought that love was all that mattered. I also started engaging in sexual relationships before marriage because I thought love was all that really mattered. I now don't agree with that. I don't think that any young people listening out there, I don't think it's a good idea to start having sex with people until you're ready to form that consecrated bond and willing to keep God in the center of it even. And if you don't know what that means or what that looks like, I would at least strongly encourage you not to sin against your own body by just giving it away. Even if you love somebody, like, I've said before, I think in my videos, or at least in this work, we really overemphasize sex and underemphasize relationships in our culture. And it leads a lot of people in our society, especially our young people, into a lot of trouble and a lot of paths that kind of open them up to the enemy and his schemes, if I'm being quite honest. So I would really encourage you to think long and hard and have a deep commitment with the person you're with before you start engaging in sexual relationships. Okay? So, at any rate, because my sons also struggle in their faith, they're pretty much non-believers as well. My youngest son, well, all of them I have hope for, I really do, especially my youngest son. I'm just going to keep at him. As long as he'll let me. Anyway, so fast forward. So that was 2000 when my second son was born. Fast forward to 2009. I was still working at Developmental Disabilities Resource Center, DDRC, in Lakewood or Jefferson County, Colorado. I lost my mom to complications of diabetes in July, and in December I lost my sister to cancer. My mom was 63, my sister was 36. That is when things took a turn in my life. I really felt like I needed to do something different and make changes and try to pull me out of the, depression and the fog that I was in for a good year to 2 years, probably, after I lost them, especially the first year. In April of 2010, I was involved in a fender bender. And again, this is at the beginning, not again, but just to let you know also, this is the beginning of the Great Recession. And I was divorced. So my husband and I both provided for the children and both cared for the children still, even after our divorce. But I still had to provide a place for myself on a single income. And it was difficult. So after having insurance for decades, probably, I let it lapse 2 weeks before this fender bender, which saved me $150, but ended up costing me $1,500. Yeah, so I got in the fender bender, got my insurance back, paid the $1,500 to have the other car fixed from this teeny little, you'd think they could have just popped out the dent and there was no paint off of it or anything. My paint didn't get on it. Ridiculous. Anyway, probably even worse now. Probably be $2,500. Anyway, so in August of 2010, my place of employment did a random DMV check. They do that once in a while because we had to drive residents around in vans that they had. So they did random checks, like once a year, once every 2 years or something like that. And you couldn't have so many points against your license within a 2-year period and still be able to drive their vans. Well, my license had been suspended with the lack of insurance and everything. And I didn't know that until they ran it. So they gave me like 45 days to be able to get my license reinstated. And I could have done it within like 30 days, actually. But I, like I said, was in this fog and had some depression and really felt like I needed a change. And also felt like maybe I needed some time off to just heal and take care of myself and get my thoughts together a little bit. And I had a little bit of money in my retirement plan. So I went ahead and purposely pushed it past 45 days so that I would be let go from my job and could get my 401k money and take 1 to 3 months off. And then I thought I would try to find something else. And I didn't. I mean, I heard about the economic crisis and all that stuff, but I didn't really pay that much attention. I mean, I was paycheck to paycheck. I was a single mom. I was, still trying to struggle my way through college, and I just wasn't really that involved in the economy other than my own budget and trying to make that work. So didn't really understand at that time that the housing market is what kind of brought it all. Well, banks did it actually, but using banks' involvement in the housing market is what caused the financial crisis for the most part. But I was thinking, well, maybe real estate would be a good thing to get into. I don't remember what else I tried, but of course I didn't get any jobs in real estate in 2010. But I couldn't get a job outside of the field I had been working in. So I went to reapply at DDRC, and they told me I wasn't eligible for rehire for a year for reasons that I won't get into here because they're boring. But anyway, I had to wait at least a year. So I had no choice but to change. So that was a little bit of a panic, and I actually ended up on public assistance for a little bit, which saved my butt. I was also able to get unemployment only because of the of the economic crisis and the Great Recession. And they had instead of just one tier of unemployment, they were offering 3 tiers of unemployment. So where I was denied the first one because it was my own fault that I lost my license, for whatever reason, it was probably God, because I probably wasn't supposed to get it at all, but I was able to get the second and third tier of unemployment. And I'm telling you what, that helped so much. I did my semester because I was going to college for teaching, for special education. And so I was able to do my praxis, is that what it's called? Anyway, where you have to work in a classroom like 15 hours a week or something like that. I had to work, and I actually ended up getting a full-time job in a classroom at the end of that time. And before I did that and got that full-time job at the school, I'm getting all jumbled up and skipping ahead a little bit here, but a coworker, an ex-coworker of mine, had told me about a staffing agency that worked mostly with the Mental Health Center of Denver, with nursing homes and other places, but their largest client was the Mental Health Center of Denver. And I got on there, and that is what introduced me to mental health. Huge positive change in my life. So, just so you know, if anything bad like that happens, never give up and never turn away from God, because He has a plan, whether you know it or not. I needed a change. I had no idea that the change I needed was to go full on into mental health, because working with adults with disabilities, unfortunately, is also working in the field of mental health, mainly because they are highly vulnerable to abuse, most especially in their childhoods. And I'm telling you, I don't know that we have studies yet to determine this fully, but most of our mental health issues stem from abuse or psychological trauma of some sort. And a lot of times that abuse is in our childhoods. And again, now that I'm getting more knowledgeable and interacting more closely with the supernatural, so to speak, I also know that the evil one is involved a lot there. And demons and angels, I believe, are real. Not everybody does, but when we hurt each other, it opens portals, and bad spirits can attach to us and affect our lives. Anyway, I'll stop there on that. So, yeah, I started working in mental health, and I still worked in mental health. I still do. But, I'm working with adults again with developmental disabilities. So, again, not full on mental health anymore, but still in the same, on the spectrum, put it that way. Excuse me. So yeah, I worked with the staffing agency through most of the time that I was collecting unemployment. So I was able to work part-time hours and get some of the Social Security or the unemployment benefits and make that work. So the education job ended and I went back to working in just mental health. And I'm looking at my notes over here. That's why I keep turning away. I went through all my videos and kind of made notes on them all. But we haven't got that far yet because I just got introduced to mental health. So in 2012, 2 years into working, well, about a year and a half into working, because I started in November of 2010 in mental health. So about a year and a half, 2 years into working in mental health, my mind was opened to my walk with God and serving Him through epic work. That was when I found out about the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. I'll get into that more in a later video, but that is what showed me the strong connection between mental health issues and childhood abuse. And I also got to know Tonier Neen Kane's story. Hi, Tonier. Blew my mind, but she has a documentary out there called Healing Neen. I highly recommend it. And they talk about the ACE study in that as well. That might be where I learned about it, actually. I'm not quite sure, but I think maybe it was. All right, so moving forward, in 2016, I graduated my education program from Metropolitan State University in Denver, Colorado. And by that time, I knew that I had wanted to find a way to bring mental health and education together. I'll get into that more also in a later video. But I didn't really know where I could go, where we actually did that. This was kind of not necessarily right in the beginning, but they were kind of getting to where they were bringing mindfulness and talking about mental health in schools. But mindfulness is just like, it's just a little tip of the iceberg, and without any other support, mindfulness doesn't really do very much on its own. There was one student, as a matter of fact, that had a very difficult relationship with her mom, and probably a lot of other things going on in her life. Probably also, to tell you the truth, the evil one messing with her some because of her circumstances and stuff she had gone through. But for her, I think school was a pleasant distraction from everything going on in her mind. So mindfulness was, I think, harmful to her. I mean, she acted out. She made the school psychologist that was facilitating the mindfulness for like 15 minutes, I think, or 30 minutes or something within one classroom or something like that. Made her cry one day because she just was so disruptive and, I guess, disrespectful. But it wasn't personal. I talked to her a little bit about that. It wasn't personal. I knew, especially after I found something that she had written about her relationship with her mom, that she just, that was not helpful to her, to quiet her mind and like let her thoughts just float out there and be disconnected from her thoughts. She wasn't capable of doing that. So having to sit quietly and try to do it was tormenting to her. I mean, we have so long to go before we really understand anything about mental illness and treatment for mental illness and trying to support each other and even health in general, really. So where did I have it written down? No, I don't have it written down anywhere, but it wasn't long after I had the epiphany of bringing mental health and education together that I realized this was through working with people, individuals inside of mental health, that we need to bring our health together before we can even bring health and education together, because separating our physical and mental health is stupid. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It causes more harm than good. Mental health professionals, okay, I'm not one, so I can't speak with authority here, but I've worked in the field of mental health since 2010, going on 14 years here. And I can tell you, somebody saying they're a mental health professional doesn't mean much. They've learned about theories. They've learned about our diagnostic manual for mental illness, which is really far more of a billing code than it is any kind of a therapeutic tool. I mean, most people in mental health haven't even heard of the ACE study. So that strong connection between psychological trauma and mental illness, isn't even really known largely. It's starting to be more and more, I think, but now with the craziness going on, I don't know what's going to happen with that. But it still is. I mean, when was it? Like 2014 when we actually switched or tried to switch the term mental health to behavioral health? Excuse me? What does that even mean? We did that, I think. It never was explained to me, even though I worked full on in the field at the time. It just happened. I was like, wait, what? What is that? I actually messaged Tonir about it and was like, what is this? And she said, I don't know. Our system is just broken. It's a way to try to come up with I think anyway, a way to try to come up with a one plan fits all fix for people struggling with their mental health, emotional health, emotions, with their traumatic pasts. And if you can call it behavioral health and you can sell that, pun intended, then you can expect people to just jump on board and make the changes that they need to make, receive the treatment that you've given them, and get better. And if they don't, you can blame it on them. I fully believe that's why we tried to do that, and that's what we're trying to do, and it's backfiring on us completely, and hopefully they're not still trying to do that. I don't even know. Education. All right, so bullying is not one of the adverse experiences that's on the ACE study, but it is something that happens quite often in our schools, and we don't even know how to stop that. People will say kids are mean, kids are cruel, write it off like it's just how it is. It's not. It doesn't have to be that way. Kids don't want it to be that way, nor the bullies, nor the victims want it to be that way. I heard, I can't quote it because I'm not positive it even exists, but I heard that there are studies showing that people with the most mental health issues that come out of bullying situations are kids that both are bullies and have been bullied. And that makes perfect sense to me. They're the ones that come out with the most psychological damage that they have to then try to heal. That makes sense to me. So anyway, I graduated. I was living in a friend's basement and I didn't know where to work. Didn't want to go into education because we can't keep our kids safe. And I just couldn't commit to a full-time job, not having any power over keeping our kids safe. That was also when cell phones first started getting big, when I did my student teaching in 2016. Yeah, 2016. It was like a war almost. It was like, I'm not doing that. Like, either don't allow the phones or do allow the phones. Have a general policy. I don't know, something, but not just leave it as a power struggle between the students and the teacher with these cell phones. Oh my God. Ridiculous. And again, I knew by then it was important for us to bring our health together so that we could actually try to improve health outcomes. So when EPIC was born, when the seed of it was born in 2012, by the time I graduated in 2016, I knew that we needed to bring health together, that we also needed to bring health and education together so that we could improve health outcomes for children and families and literally save lives. That is what I knew, and that is what God prepared me for. So since then, I've been trying to figure out how to do that, mostly on my own in our world. Over the last 11 months, I've realized, really, since December of 2022 when I took my mission trip, which I'll also talk about at a later date, I have known that God leads and that I can learn as much as possible and try to persuade as many people as I can get a hold of, try to find funding for this or funding for that, or I can't do anything. This is all God. So there's that. Anyway, so in the middle of 2017, I needed to abruptly move out of my friend's basement, mainly because I was writing to Dwight Sonny Abbott, who has been locked up for most of his life because of childhood abuse that he suffered in the California youth detention systems, youth protective services detention centers, and then later in the criminal justice system in California. He ended up in there and could never get out. Anyway, I was exchanging letters with him. He was in California. I was in Colorado. But I also was supporting a youth that I worked with in 2014 at another youth facility. Again, while I was still, well, they were mental health. They were mental health as well. Yeah, they were basically a mental health thing. It wasn't even a detention facility. I think it was considered a residential facility, but it was locked. They did school there and everything. Anyway, he had unfortunately ended up getting ensnared in the legal system, making some bad decisions, again, because of abuse, because of a chaotic home life. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended up in the situation he was in the night that the crime happened, and he wouldn't have ended up in prison. Anyway, I was communicating with Sonny, and I was supporting and visiting this other youth that is still locked up, unfortunately. We're hoping within the next year or two that that'll change, but he's not scheduled to get out for quite some time. He was given way too hard of a sentence, way too long of a sentence for the crime committed. It was a violent crime, but nobody died, and he got more time than a lot of people that I've heard about that have killed people. Anyway, she did not feel that that was safe and didn't know that her children were safe with me having contact with two people that were in prison. So I had to get out of there real quick because that's one of the most important things that I found out is feeling and being safe. Safety is the cornerstone of our health, and my professional motto since about 2014, I think, is nothing good can happen until you feel safe. So I had to get out of there real quick. That was still during the Great Recession. So I had just graduated. I was still working with the temp staffing agency. And so, I didn't have a whole bunch of money. So rather than, I hadn't paid a lot while I'd been there, and I'd been with her for about 10 months, I think I lived there. But I'm not the greatest with money. Excuse me. And I was going to school full time. So there's that. So I wasn't making a ton, but I didn't save a bunch, and or I didn't save anything really. And so getting an apartment would have cost like everything and had me struggling again, paycheck to paycheck. So I had a bright red Jeep Liberty. And if I knew how to put pictures in here, I would show you pictures of her right now. And I decided that her name was Ruby. She was bright red. I loved that car so much. She was an idol. I probably loved her more than God. Maybe not if I really thought about it, but I thought about her a lot more often than I thought about God. Anyway, my face. Anyway, I decided that I was going to get a storage unit. I didn't have that much stuff because I was living in a friend's basement, so I'd got rid of most of my stuff before I even moved in there. So I was going to live in this Jeep Liberty, out of this Jeep Liberty. Not in it. Can't really live in a car, but I could live out of it. I worked in group homes, so, and 2 months into it, I think, I started working overnights. So that worked well. So I didn't work every night, but I was often parked at a home and had a home to be in on the overnights, and it's much easier to find some place to park and sleep in your car during the daylight hours than it is overnight. So it worked out pretty well, and not only that, I loved it. I loved the freedom. I loved the car. I made it to where I was comfortable to sleep in there. After COVID, it wouldn't have worked very good with COVID, and after COVID, a lot of places don't stay open all night anymore. So as far as having to be near a bathroom, because I didn't have one in my car, obviously, that would be more difficult now. Plus, I'm older and not as limber and more sore, so my arthritis is worse. So it wouldn't really work right now. But for that 10 months, it was amazing. And I got business cards then, and I was working with one of the kids that I had done student teaching with. And I actually ended up working with a couple others. But during the time I was in Ruby, I just worked with one, was still supporting the young person that I had worked with at the youth facility. I think that's basically it, and was just, saying God leads and trying to figure out where I wanted to land and how I wanted to make this epic work happen, what I wanted to do. So then in 2018, started making more money. We started getting raises, at least in Colorado. They started giving us better pay, at least in the field of mental health, the places that I worked. I got the first epic space, which was the apartment that I was in before I came to this space. It had two bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and the coat closet was a 5x8 walk-in closet, which was the perfect amount of room for an emergency safety space. Couldn't call it a bedroom because there was no window or anything, but for a person that was, not in a safe situation, I had to know them, of course, because it was in the apartment that I lived in. But, so there was that. But it was perfectly big enough to put a little cot, a little rollaway bed in there, and it already was the closet, so it had the things hanging and it had shelves on the top. Put a little cubby in there for them to use as a table and to put stuff on. A little fan. So there was some air circulation in there. So I had that space, and I had the extra bedroom that I used for uh, people to be able to have reduced rent and get support with their health while they were getting on their feet, and that they could also be safe. Created a safety contract, um, and lived there for 4.5 years, and worked with 7 people, I believe it was, and 3 pets. It was great. It was really great. So I was there when COVID hit. 2020. 2019 is when I started the YouTube channel. And at that point in time, I called it Northern Star, and I thought it was going to be my retirement gig. Like, I started hearing about how much money some people were making with their YouTube channels, and I had been paycheck to paycheck all my life. Had used up most of my wait. Did I do that once or twice? With DDRC, I used my retirement money. Yeah, I think I only did it twice. So I hadn't done it yet, but at the job I had at the time, I just had a little bit built up in my 401k. So I figured, hey, like, maybe I can share this work somehow with people. Maybe find some support, and maybe make some money. So I did delete the first one because I was at the Indian Hot Springs in Idaho Springs, Colorado, in one of their baths. So I was naked. You couldn't tell. I mean, you could, because you could see I was in a bath, but you could only see me from here up. But still, I was naked. My hair was wet. So I looked even more blemishy and not as made up as than I do now. But there was like a fan going so that, you wouldn't get all hot and humid in there because it was a hot bath. And I didn't talk that loud, and so you could hardly hear what I was saying. So, and I did ramble on a bit, and I just was talking about, Generation X taking over YouTube or something like that. I don't know. I was like, let me delete that one. So I deleted that one, but yeah, I started it in 2019. I'm not good at it still, as you can tell. So yeah, it didn't really go very far. I only put a few of them on there. One of them was for a school assignment, which is still on there, I think. But yeah, Northern Star. And then 2020 happened. COVID happened. In 2020, God led me to a space that would have been so perfect. It was a live work space. It would have been so perfect for Epic. I could have had like nutrition programs, and I was thinking about getting a high school completion program in there, and health groups, and I mean, all kinds of stuff just started flowing into my head. I was in school again for a master's program in education. But this, even though I knew there was like no way I was ready for it, I couldn't stop all these ideas and it being so perfect, even the place it was. I knew I could walk around the neighborhood to the businesses and probably get support from the businesses. Hey, would you be willing to, hire people on for 6 months or so just to give them some experience and help them get on their feet? I mean, all these ideas just kept coming that I knew were just awesome. And so and then an elementary school, I won't really get into it, but it had been abandoned for a long time, and I'd always felt like it was by hospitals and stuff, and in a nice little Denver neighborhood. And I always just thought, I think God put the idea in my head for like Epic High or something like that, like a high school, having turned into a high school and bringing health and education together. Anyway, that came up for lease. No way I was even anywhere near able to like lease something like that unless I would have found some serious funding or something. But again, I couldn't stop the thoughts. It had already been like a kind of a seed dream planted in my head for about 3 years before it came up for lease. And it was at the same time as that other building. So I actually stopped the semester of school and filled out an application for that place and found a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They were still together at that time. Found this grant on my birthday for $50,000 that wasn't exactly what Epic was doing. I can't even remember now exactly what it was, but it was close enough. And plus, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, their two main focuses are health and education. Education here in the USA and global health, more or less. But still, I thought that if they could see the idea, they'd be all over it. So I was like, oh, this is God. This has got to be God. There's no way I'm going to get through all of this because we're getting up here close to an hour. I don't want to go over an hour because I've probably bored a bunch of people already. So I'll have to do this in 2 parts. Anyway, I went ahead and put it in an application for the grant, put in an application for the leasing of the school. And of course, neither one happened. But, you know, yeah. So then God took me from that job, which just happened just like that. I had no idea that that was going to happen, but the way that I ended up leaving that job, I was like, well, this has got to be God because it just has to be. I won't bother explaining it, but God took me from that job, allowed me again. This was in January of 2021. Allowed me again to take rest and time off because I didn't get locked off and lose my job during COVID. I was in a 28-day mental health treatment facility at that time while working full time. I had worked for the same company in their detox program for not very long. I had some issues with detox, and the supervisor had some issues with me. I don't even know why, really, but I went back to the residential part of it within the same company, though. No, I lost my place where I was. So, yeah, that was from 2017 to 2021 because I worked in the residential place for a couple years, I think. All right, so that's where I was. COVID. I had worked all the way through COVID, no time off whatsoever. Even working extra shifts and stuff. So I kind of needed to decompress and take some time off, especially after being so abruptly taken from that job. It kind of made my head spin. And I pretty much knew God would like put me where he wanted me to be, but I took the opportunity to take some time off. I had 2 cars at the time. One of them was paid off. So I actually ended up selling that one so I could take a little bit more time off and fund a pilot program for Epic that I ran out of that apartment, that same space. And I ended up getting a job at a group home called In Between. How perfect is that? And I knew that was probably going to be in between whatever God had for me in this epic work, and that I'd learn more from the people in that group home to use towards my work. And that's pretty much kind of what happened. So I started that job in April of 2021. And was still in the apartment, the first Epic space. Didn't work out with the live workspace or the school. I need to pause and get some water. Oh, it worked. I thought I accidentally stopped it. Yay. I have so much to learn. I want to convince my son to work with me, to walk with God with me, and to learn how to produce these videos. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm praying for. Come on, God, let's get it done. Anyway. Anyway, so like I said, I worked with 7 people, 3 pets, I believe, in the first Epic space. I had run out of people that I knew well enough to allow to live with myself and Epic's one long-term member who was in the second bedroom, but he was there for 4 years and was a full-on roommate for the last year and a half he was there. So, like, my work with him was done. He didn't necessarily think so, but it was. We were full roommates by the time we parted ways. So I didn't know what to do. I started learning about our economy. That's another thing. I started doing that when the live workspace and the school was for lease. I started looking into our economy because I started getting serious about trying to find funding because it was getting more clear what I wanted to do. I wanted to somehow make this work. I wanted to make this work popular so that it would come to the attention of schools and I could have some sort of a say in bringing health and education together and addressing the bullying and putting it to a stop and working on relationships, positive relationships, making the phrase, nothing good can happen until you feel safe, mean something within our education system. I still would like to see that happen, but now I don't have to feel pressured because now I know it's all God. I just have to do what God says and it'll work out somehow or another. Anyway, so I started learning about our economy. That was getting me really frustrated and really angry because the more I learned, the more I realized people don't even care about our kids. You know why? Because they don't produce incomes. They don't produce for the economy. They just cost. You know how much money we put to our broken, crappy education systems? Like almost half of our money between federal and state. Maybe not half, but at least 30% of our total money goes to education of our kids. And it's in shambles. So, coming up on December of 2022, and that's where I'll stop. But I decided, okay, look, I'm not getting any younger. I still am paycheck to paycheck. I still don't have any kind of a retirement going on. I have taken out 401k 3 times because I took it out of that job. When I left that job, when I was I'll get there too. But anyway, so December of 2022 is when I planned my mission trip through the Midwest. And the part 2 of this video, when I hopefully finish bringing us up to date to where I am today, I will talk about that. And I would like to say a little bit more about where I stand now as far as religion and God, but it's just getting too long and I'll probably open up. No, I won't open up the next one with that. I'll just wait till it comes time during my sabbatical, not during the mission trip. Yep. So part 2, I will talk about my mission trip in December of 2022. and my videos that where I cussed and I shouldn't have, and about coming here to this space and what I'm trying to do with this now, and my sabbatical that I took when I came to this place, my 333-day sabbatical, and my experience that I had in October of last year, 2023, and then I'll be ready to get back to the community health videos, the community health meeting videos. So I hope I didn't ramble too much or mess with my face too much. Hope it was at least semi-interesting. If nothing else, it's a good journal for me to look back on. And I hope you'll join me for a part 2 if you have any interest whatsoever. So please take care of yourselves and dream. And most importantly, love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might. And love others as you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, work on that first one, because God loves you so much. And there's no reason for us not to love ourselves, because we're made in His image. And He's the sweetest spirit in the entire